After winning two straight in Big 12 play, it seemed like West Virginia had somewhat turned a corner. Mountaineers took a little bit of a step back, but we talk about how much this loss hurts in the bigger picture as the Mountaineers fall to number 5 Texas 94-60 on Saturday. What's going on, everybody? Wesley Shoemaker back with you today, another episode of the Blue Gold Sports Podcast. Yes, I know it has been a minute, but here we are back today, another episode, this time following a loss for the Mountaineers. Mountaineers just get simply rolled by Texas, 94-60, the loss in Austin today. Mountaineers turned the ball over 20 times, leading to 32 Texas points, while the West Virginia defense just got lit up and the offense never found their footing, especially in the second half. So first things first, let's turn the clock back a little bit. Mountaineers came into this game having just won 2 straight, and it honestly looked like they had carried some momentum with them early on in this one. Emma Matthews scored 9 early points. Mountaineers led 12-8. There was that weird double foul call, the block and the charge both called on the same play. I don't know how that works. Never seen that one before, but another day for the Big 12 referees. Anyway, moving on, Emmett Matthews would not get to shoot the free throw attempt after he did make a layup and get called for a foul while also getting called for a block, but basket counted. The one free throw obviously wouldn't mean anything in the end. West Virginia, though, they just were never in it following the opening 6, 7, 8 minutes there. Texas went on a run, and within the first 13 minutes of the game, the Longhorns scored 12 points off of 7 West Virginia turnovers. Mountaineers trailed by 11. Seth Wilson hit a little mid-range jumper early on there, and then they were never in it from that point on. But coming into this game, Mountaineers had just defeated Iowa State and Oklahoma in back-to-back games, and both of those showings were dominant performances. Well, I'll take that back. The Oklahoma showing was a dominant performance. Mountaineers beat the Sooners 93-61, but then Iowa State, they grinded it out and got a victory there. And you kind of saw in the beginning of the game that West Virginia, that team that played against Iowa State, that we're going to stay in this and see what happens late, but they never did that. They turned the ball over 20 times, and that just can't happen. West Virginia has turned the ball over 20 times, 3 times this year. Twice were against the Texas Longhorns. So matchup nightmares for West Virginia. Biggs didn't really play that well for the Mountaineers. Starts with Jimmy Bell. Jimmy Bell, 6 points, 5 rebounds in 15 minutes of play. Mo Wiggy, 4 points, 3 rebounds in 10 minutes. And then James Okonkwo, 2 points, 3 rebounds in 16 minutes. Probably James's worst game in a little while, probably about a month, which is good to say for him. 3 weeks, not a month, not quite there. But let's talk about this game. So first thing that stood out to West Virginia head coach was the physicality of this game. Texas was all over the Mountaineers. Longhorns had 10 steals on the day. That is a large number, and West Virginia really had no answer on offense. Texas kind of got up in West Virginia's space. They bumped them, and there weren't referees that were calling every bump, and West Virginia really struggled to cope with that. Huggins said the physicality was the biggest thing that kind of stood out for him, and he said this team wasn't prepared for that, and you kind of saw that down the stretch of the first half. Texas just took over on defense, took over on offense, and part of that was to West Virginia just doing dumb stuff with the basketball, throwing it to Texas, throwing it out of bounds. Like, first play of the game, Eric Stevenson drives towards the lane, and he just completely turns around, tries to, I think, look for Emma Matthews, and then just throws it out of bounds. So careless things like that leading to easy Texas points, while Texas's defense had a field day against the Mountaineers. Mountaineers shot 35% from the field. That is their lowest total I think they've shot all season. Second lowest total by 0.1%. They shot 35.1% against Kansas, 35.2% 46% on the afternoon. Mountaineers made 6 3-pointers. So the trend of West Virginia making threes continues. Mountaineers have made at least 6 3-pointers, and I think they're past 7 games here. So that is a good little stretch that West Virginia is on from 3-point range, but obviously it didn't mean much. On the flip side, Texas kind of made everything. 47% from the field, 10 of 17 from 3. Serge Rice had himself a day. He had 4 3-pointers, 5 of 6 from the field, and had 10 points at the free throw line. Texas missed 1 free throw, and it's not like they only shot 8, 14, 15 free throws. They shot 25 free throws, made 24 of them. And the biggest number for them, they turned the ball over only 16 times. Speaking of West Virginia's bigs, going back to that for a second, Mountaineers were 4 of 11 on layups. So the 1 foot, 2 foot problem still continues here. The turnovers still continue. And for a team who had looked so different than they did against Kansas State, against Oklahoma State, against Kansas even, they seem to look like that same team. And you can chalk it up as West Virginia's playing the number 5 team in the country on the road, but you would have liked to see them show a little more fight than a 34-point loss. And the 34-point loss is their biggest loss since West Virginia lost that tournament game in 2014, 2015 to Kentucky. So not a lot of good to come from this. And if you're West Virginia now, you turn the page and you face number 14 Baylor. Baylor on Monday for the Mountaineers lost to in Morgantown, another team West Virginia lost to. They lost 83-78, a game West Virginia was in until late, and they just couldn't get it done there. So let's dive into this Texas game a little deeper. Turnovers, mentioned them already, 20 leading to 32 points, most turnovers they've had all year. And this is twice now they've played Texas and turned the ball over at least 20 times in each of those games. So how do you fix it? I think that's the biggest question mark, right? Because you've seen since Big 12 play, West Virginia has turned the ball over at a high rate. They've turned the ball over 20 times against Kansas State, 15 times against Oklahoma State, 15 times against TCU the first time, 20 times against Texas the first time, 19 against Texas Tech. And then they got it down to under 12 the past 4 games, and then 20 again here tonight. So West Virginia doesn't have a true point guard. Kedrian Johnson is not your traditional ball handler, and Joe Toussaint, while he is good with the ball, he's not on the floor. He's not the starting point guard. So Joe has really good handles, but I think sometimes there's a double-edged sword with that. He can be really good with the ball in his hands, but sometimes he holds the ball too long, and also sometimes he dribbles into places where he then has to make a rushed or bad pass, and it turns out bad for him and for the Mountaineers. So that kind of calming presence with the ball, that I can run this offense with the ball in my hands, it's not always there for West Virginia. And while Kedrian Johnson has been here for a while, I'm not going to say it's his fault, because he's just not a true point guard. Huggins has talked about this before, and sometimes it rears its ugly head. And this was one of those nights. And you also have to talk about Trey Mitchell a little bit here. Trey, I believe, had 5 turnovers, and I guess we can call it the Trey Mitchell return game. 5 turnovers for Trey, 25 minutes, 5 rebounds, and only 4 points, 1 of 3 from the field. So he just was never himself. After the game, Huggins talked about Trey. He just said he wasn't Trey. I didn't know what to do with him. He wasn't as confident. He wasn't as focused. He just wasn't Trey. So this team kind of has 2 guys, I think, that they've looked to and gone through this year, and that is Trey Mitchell and that is Eric Stevenson. When those 2 guys play their best basketball, this team plays their best basketball. And Texas just kind of, whenever Trey would touch the ball, they'd send multiple defenders at him. They'd be physical with him, and they'd make the referees call a foul. And more often than not, there was not a foul called. And more often than not, Trey Mitchell would throw the ball away, or just turn the ball over. And I think there were at least 2, maybe 3 instances where he just thought a teammate would be in one place and they weren't, and he ended up throwing the ball out of bounds. So Mitchell has got to get right. Trey's got to get right for West Virginia, because if he doesn't, there could be a shortened tournament run, a non-existent tournament run if he doesn't, because the way he plays and the way Eric Stevenson plays is the way West Virginia plays. And speaking of Eric Stevenson, 3 points, 1 of 7 from the field, 18 minutes. Obviously, a week ago, Stevenson scored a career-high 34, and here he is a week later scoring only 3. So when those two guys give you a combined 7 points and are combined 2 of 10 from the field, and they have 8 turnovers, you're probably not going to win a game. And you're especially not going to win a game on the road against a top 5 team in the country, against one of the best teams in this conference, a team who is starting to make their claim as a possible 1 seed come March, depending on what they do over these next 2-3 weeks heading into the NCAA tournament. So next, let's kind of talk about this defense. I kind of feel like when you turn the ball over and you have poor defense, those things kind of go hand in hand, just because teams are running in transition. Teams are getting easier baskets because you turn the ball over. So that's kind of expected, but West Virginia really has not been that bad in defending the 3. And today they just got lit up. 10 of 17 from Texas. That's the second most 3-pointers West Virginia has allowed this year. They allowed 11 to Kansas and then 10 to Mount St. Mary's in non-conference play. But let's look at the last 2 games that West Virginia won. Oklahoma shot 5 of 21 from 3. Iowa State went 6 of 18 from 3. So Texas got almost as many 3-pointers made tonight as those 2 teams had combined in your last 2 victories if you're West Virginia. So that's cause for concern. And you have more opportunities, yes, but you can't let teams make 10 3-pointers, especially when those teams are probably better than you and you're on their home floor. So the defense kind of hurts. The fouling hurts. Everything from this one hurts. And that's where we kind of get into the bigger picture. Bigger picture with this one for me is simple. You lose to the number 5 team in the country on the road. Yeah, it was a stinker. You've had a couple of stinkers, and that's it. But they've both been to top 10 teams in Kansas and Texas. You still got games left. You didn't need to win this one. You really don't need to win Monday. All you really need to do if you're West Virginia is win your 3 games at home. And then if you want to be completely safe, you'll win 1 either in the conference tournament or you steal one of the next, I think it is 4 games they have, or 3 games they have on the road. I think 3 more wins where West Virginia is at gets them in. 18 wins and the Big 12 does get them in. I'm not saying it gets them into a seed. I'm just saying it gets them in the field of 68. Gets them into at least the first 4 games. So things have got to improve. Simple as that. Got to improve from today. But you've also seen this team play at a really high level at home, at a neutral site. Like, I think their game against Iowa State, while it wasn't their prettiest game, they found a way to win. And that's what we've been searching for West Virginia, is finding a way to win. Like against Iowa State, Mountaineers only scored, I think they only had did not score a field goal in the last 5+ minutes, but they still found a way to win late. Against Oklahoma, that was obviously probably their best game of the year. Maybe I'd say Florida is obviously in that conversation as well. And then a week before that, you beat Auburn, top 15 Auburn at your place as well. So this team has the capability to beat good teams. It's just hard to win in the Big 12, plain and simple as that. And West Virginia was a 9 seed in Joe Lunardi's latest bracketology. It'll be interesting to see where they move in overall bracketology heading into tomorrow and Monday. Yes, Monday would be obviously nice to win. Any win you can get from here on out would be nice. I'm not sure if they'll do it. It's hard to win on the road in the Big 12, hard to win in Waco, and it's even harder to win when you're coming off a loss like this. Yeah, there's going to be a bad taste in their mouths, and I think it's best that West Virginia gets to kind of come back and play in 36, 48 hours from this loss and not have to sit on it till Wednesday. And then they get to return home Tuesday early morning and then have a little 4-day stretch before they play Texas Tech at home. So season's not going to ride or die on this one. That's, I think, the biggest thing that this team should realize is that one game is not going to make or break this season, and especially when that one game is the number 5 team in the country on the road. 11 a.m. tip it was local time. Yeah, both teams had to do it, but it's different when it's your home court versus when you're traveling halfway across the country to do it. But bracketology wise, West Virginia, I think, gets to 18, 19, and they're for sure in like if they're at 19 wins, they shouldn't have to play in Dayton. They should be able to be one of the an at-large bid in the actual thing and play in the round of 64. So Mountaineers lose. It wasn't pretty, that's for certain. But if you get 3 wins at home and you get to get one in the Big 12 Conference Tournament, which if the season ended today, you'd be playing Oklahoma in the 8-9 game in the conference tournament, and you just beat Oklahoma by 100, it felt like. You actually beat them by 30, but you get the point. You beat a team by 32 a week ago, and if you get them in Kansas City, that would be really nice, and it's just another win. All you have to do is win 3 to 4 more games if you're West Virginia, and you are in this tournament. And I think once they get into the tournament, this team will obviously not have to play on the road. They'll be playing at neutral sites and home sites. And let's rewind to November. West Virginia played current number 1 team Purdue, and we're down 4 with like 3 minutes left when Trey Mitchell and Emmett Matthews were both sick. They were playing in Portland on Thanksgiving night. Like, everything just didn't line up for them that night, but they battled against the best team in the country that night, and they're playing in the best conference in America, no question about it, and they're playing the best teams in the country. Like, there could probably be 5 teams that all receive top 4 seeds in the Big 12, which is absurd. There could be 2 seeds in this thing, and all from the Big 12, and West Virginia still has to play the 3 best teams in the conference, 3 of the 4 best teams in the conference on the road, I'd say. Baylor Monday, and then you have Kansas and Iowa State. But then you get 2 of the weaker teams at home, which you have to take care of business. You got to beat Texas Tech, got to beat Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's a good team, they're a tournament team, yes, but you got to beat them both at home. And then you got to pull it out against Kansas at home come first week of March. And if you don't do it again, Kansas State at home first week of March. And if you don't win that game, you got to win at least 1, maybe 2 in Kansas City if you don't win a road game. So Mountaineers lose to Texas 94-60. Wasn't pretty, but it's just a day in the Big 12. And West Virginia will move on, flush it, regroup, come back Monday. Another opportunity for Mountaineers to get a big win, to get a quad 1 win, and to get a road win in the Big 12. So that'll do it for today's episode. I'm Wesley Shoemaker, host of the Blue Gold Sports Podcast. Keep it locked here, as well as bluegoldsports.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, see us on Facebook, do all of that. And if you made it this far, I do appreciate you listening. This is the Blue Gold Sports Podcast.